everybody, it's me, Laura, and today I've got a new miniature for you, yet we're doing a gnomie. Yes, my gnome. I love my little gnome. He's so cute with the little Clover. Okay, maybe a little overboard. Anyways, I'm going to be bringing in some of my teaspoons here, and I've got, of course, my teaspoon, my half, my quarter, the whole thing. Anyways, I'm going to be using my smallest teaspoon form, and this was the quarter teaspoon. And notice here too, these are oval in nature. I found this set of teaspoons and it was like the rounded type teaspoon on one end, and then it was an oval on the other. I love that. So if you run across these, listen, I'd snatch a pair up. They come in so very handy. Anyways, I'm bringing in my purple clay here, which was rolled out on a number 4 setting on my Atlas pasta machine. I'm using my scissors to kind of trim off any excess I have. And then once I have that trimmed off, I'm pulling and kind of forming that clay to the tinfoil form, just cutting off any extra as I go. Once I have that though, I'm going to be bringing in some turquoise clay, and this turquoise is going to be rolled up into a ball. It's a 1/2 inch in diameter, and once I get that 1/2 inch ball together, I'm going to take my hand and on the side of my tile, you're going to form up this nice long teardrop. Once you have that teardrop, and I'm patting up my purple there a little, you're going to take that turquoise and just put it right onto one end of your tinfoil form with the purple on it, and just making it into this nice little long teardrop. This will eventually be the hat on your gnome. And then I'm bringing in some beige or flesh tone type clay. I'm rolling it into a little ball, and then I'm making that that teardrop one more time. And this is going to be my nose. Now here, I kind of go back and forth. I cut it down just a little bit. It's like a 1/4 inch. But even from there, if you want to, form that teardrop, that nose, up to as big or as small as you wish. And then I'm bringing in some white clay. And right here, again, this is about a 1/4 inch in diameter. I'm rolling it out into a log. And then I'm going to cut off 2 smaller balls from this. And this will act as my eyes. I'm rolling them up. They're going to be about, close to 1/8 inch in diameter, and then into a little teardrop, forming it, placing them right by the nose on our gnome. Now, once I have these in place and I've got them formed up, you can go ahead and lift up the nose on this guy and also kind of pull your hat to a nice point. I love that. Anyways, we're going to lift up the nose on our gnome so he's kind of standing out. Bring in some more white clay. You're going to form up another teardrop. You're going to go ahead then and press that teardrop flat, bring in your needle tool, and create some vertical lines on this teardrop. Now, as I go on this teardrop, I cut it down. I make it into a smaller teardrop. This is where you kind of use, your own judgment as to how big or how small you want on, say, your little beard here on your gnome. And I cut down, I used my Exacto knife, because I thought, okay, it's just a little bit too wide. Little too wide for my liking. So we're going to cut it down some more eventually right here. And then I place that up and under the nose on my gnome. So I'll take that, place it there, put my little nose down, and there you have your beard. Once I had my beard in, I decided let's go ahead and put some little arms on this guy. So I'm bringing in my purple clay again. It's a little over a 1/4 inch, probably like 3/8 maybe. And I'm going to make 2 of these balls, and then I'm going to roll them into kind of a teardrop form, and I'll place one on one side and one on the other. Once I get these little arms in place, and notice how I push in just a little bit so it'll adhere into the body and also give it that little stump-like look, I'll bring in some beige clay here, and I want to say the diameter of these was just under a 1/4 inch. And I'm going to take these and make tiny little teardrops. Now these teardrops, I'll bring in my burnisher and I'll make an indent on both. I'll bring in my blade, lift them up off of my tile, and then place them in on the side right near the eye. Okay, so, and use your burnisher to make sure they're kind of patted down onto that right next to the eye. That should hopefully help just a little bit. Now, most gnomes do not have the ears. I just thought, no, this is my version. We're gonna put some ears on this little guy, and frankly, I like the ears. I think they're cute. There's something about it, right? And then I'm also using my burnisher to go ahead and just tap down on the little white ball where I've got my eyes here, making a bit of an indent, okay? We need to kind of prep that just a little bit so that we can go ahead and put a little black ball in there, which will finish up our eye. Anyway, from here, I'm going to bring in some more of my white clay, and I'm going to take off little balls, and each of these little balls, eventually I'll just roll them out into little tiny snakes. I'll curl them up underneath the eye area and around on the beard and so on until I fill it in the way I like. At this point, I decided to go ahead and bring in my black clay because I had filled in with my little curly kind of mustache area, right? And I needed some black that was, so a 1/4 of an inch for both little balls, 1/8 of an inch each, right? And then from there, I'm going to take those little balls, I'm going to flatten them down slightly and then lift them up either with your needle tool or your finger. Frankly, the needle tool worked best, and place them right into that little area that I had indented in that will make it ready for the eye itself. So again, bringing in that little black and placing it down right into the center, or I should say actually on the one side of the white. And it'll be right up against all those little curly mustache beard area, and it'll just look so cute. I just love it. I'm using my burnisher to push it in just slightly. You don't want to deform it too much, just slightly so it's in there. And then once you get those in, you'll go ahead and take and make some more of those little white snakes and place them around on the cap on the back side. At that point, I'm going to go ahead, I'll bake the entire thing for about 7 to 10 minutes. And mind you, your baking time might be longer because I'm living, at a mile above sea level. At sea level, it's going to take a lot longer. So check your area, your climate, your altitude for how long your baking time might be. Once I get the little white hair all filled in all the way around the cap, I'm going to look at that cap, and for me, I like to bend it over and curl it up slightly. Now, I know some gnome caps, they like to go tall, right? You want a nice little pointed hat. Well, I like to curl mine over slightly. At this point, the gnome has been baked completely, and then I'm bringing in some of my magenta type pink clay. This is about a 1/2 of an inch in diameter. I'm going to make 2 of those, and I'm going to turn them into teardrops one more time. And those teardrops wound up being a little over an inch long once I got those completely done. I want to say it was an inch and, well, just slightly, yeah, 1.25 inches. And then once I have those figured out, I'm going to put them on a tile, on a baking tile, and they're going to be butted up against each other on the bulbous end of the teardrop, okay? So it'll be like a little V shape. Once you have that in place, you could curl up your ends here, just like I'm doing here. And then once you have that done, you're going to take your little gnome body and you're going to push it right down into the top of that red magenta type clay. And there you have your little feet. Easy peasy, apps a squeezy. What can I say? Something different, right? And then an 1/8 of an inch with that little beige clay one more time. And you're going to take 2 little discs that you make there. I'm going to bring in my liquid clay. I'm going to put a little bit on the end of the little arms here and take off the body. This also helps too. Put a little bit of that liquid clay down into the shoes. Put the body back in. Again, I'm going to take a little bit of that liquid clay, try and clean it up where you can. I know it gets everywhere, right? Anyway, put a little on the end, and then you're going to put your little beige, those little circular discs, those will act as your hands. And notice I kind of curl that on the one side. Yes, that one's going to be curled, and then this one's just a little bit more open. Once I have that done though, I'm going to bake the entire gnome then for another 7 to 10 minutes in my oven. And like I said, check your area for your baking times. All right, so now we're going to start working on creating a little platform for this little gnome we've made. And I know most of the time you could just go with the little gnome. Well, no, let's do a little bit more. I mean, that's pretty much what was in my head, right? So I brought out my oval Exacto cutters, and I'm using the third smallest one. I'm going to cut out a form in this green clay. This green clay was rolled out on a number 5 setting, so this is fairly thin. And the reason for that is because we're going to build it up a little bit. I'm also bringing in some scrap stripes I had just in my extra clay stuff, right? This is scrap clay. I rolled it out and made some little stripes out of it, and I'm just going to cut a roll really of this scrap checker, and we're going to line that right around this oval. When I get that done though, I'm going to bring in the needle tool, and I'll just make some little holes into the top of the green there, and then I'll bake the entire thing another 7 to 10 minutes. I want to make sure it's thoroughly baked. Once it's thoroughly baked though, I'll make sure it's cooled off. I'll take this up off of my tile, and then I'll bring in another piece of green clay which has been rolled out on a number 3 setting. We'll then take some liquid clay, place it on the bottom side of this particular piece once it's baked, and adhere it down onto the fresh green clay and cut it out using my needle tool. When I do that, I'm also going to reform the holes that I've created on the top here, and I'll use my little bit of 26 gauge wire and place them down into those holes. I'll bake it one more time for about 7 to 10 minutes and then let that cool. Okay, so now we're going to bring in some of my Kyoker pedal cutters, and I've had these for a little bit, and I thought it's time to use them. Yes, it is time. And I'm going to take that same green that I had used for my platform. I rolled one piece out on a number 2 setting, and then another piece out on a number 4 setting. I thought the number 2 would work, and the more I started cutting them out, the more I was like, yeah, I like the 4 better. I just like the 4. Bring in your little water sprayer and spray the little cutter piece before you start punching them out, because even as I did, I still had a little bit of clay kind of like getting up into the cutter. So just spray it, make sure it's thoroughly has that release agent on it. And then if it's, like I said, I started doing it. These were just too thick. The clay was too thick. It really, when I got right down to it, I thought, well, maybe that would work. No, the thinner it is, it worked out better. You just don't want it too thin. I think if you go to a number 6 on the Atlas, it'd probably be just a little bit too much. And notice here, I'm starting to go to a little bit more like the 3 smallest sizes. Those were the ones I liked the best when I did this. And you're just going to create a bunch of these little green teardrops. And eventually what we're going to do is we're going to take these teardrops, we're going to form up 3 of them where the point comes all together towards the middle, just like a little clover would be. And then I like to use my needle tool to make a little indent right in the center of each of those little teardrops. Once I have that, I then also like to bring in some of that green wire. We're going to make sure some of it goes over the wire, so it'll go right into it, creates that nice little stem for you. And then also we're going to create some with a little ball in the center. I use my knitting needle to make the indent, and then even like a couple of them where I use the little ball in the center, but I don't indent, all right? And then we're also going to show you, or I show you, the other method I use, which is just going purely from the ball part. I roll out a little tiny teardrop, and then I indent using my burnisher tool and create a clover that way. Now, when I started doing both of these methods, this method to me took a lot longer. I think it's just because you cut out the little, the little pieces, and that gets time consuming. Plus you got the release agent. Sometimes the clay gets stuck in the cutter, and yeah, it can be time consuming. Whereas my second method, where I do it all from hand or by hand, I love that so much better. It seemed to just go a whole lot faster. So from here, guys, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I create this clover and the stuff I do by hand. At this point, all of my clover has been thoroughly baked. My platform has been thoroughly baked, and I'm using my needle tool just to make sure that those little holes in the platform are completely, they're opened up for me so I could go ahead and place the stems of my clover into it. Now, I do use a little super glue here, but first off, I've got to get my gnome placed in here. So a little bit of super glue, and I know I could be using some liquid clay. Don't hurt me. But, you know, I really didn't want to have to rebake this again. I had already baked it quite thoroughly, and I just, we don't necessarily have to. He's just a little miniature. He's going to sit on my counter somewhere, and I'm just going to enjoy him. But I'm going to come in with these clovers, and you're going to judge using your wire cutter how tall or how short you want each of these clovers. Now, I like to stagger, so if one's really tall, the next one will be much either a little bit shorter or a lot shorter, and then from a short one you go up. So you you stagger it in height so that it's like short, tall, and so on and so forth. Anyway, I had the tall one in the back there. I also am going to make sure that these are glued in. You noticed when I made that clover, some of the clovers did not have any of the wire. That was because they're going to be glued right onto the little platform here with my gnome. It also gives a little bit of support to the little wire clovers coming up out of the clay. It makes a big difference, and it just adds to the aesthetic, if you will. Anyway, I'm going to be putting in the wire with the clover. And then once I get that done, I'm going to glue everything in. I'm going to just be adding more and more clover into this little platform with the gnome. So from here, one more time, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I put together our little gnome amongst the clover. All right, so now we're going to add in some very critical details to this. So I've got this green, but I needed to bring in my green flash, my color shift to green flash, because I needed to really differentiate some of this clover from all the rest of the green in it. And it makes such a huge difference. It's just a little thing, but if you like to paint like I do, I thought, oh, let's just get out the flash. We have to, right? And I just went around to each of my little clovers. I added, like I would color in just, with my paintbrush, the leaf itself, or I'd add in a few little tiny dots, just some kind of detail with that green flash. And it just made the whole thing pop. It was the one detail I really needed to make all of this clover just kind of, yeah. Yes, I'm here. You can't ignore me. And so that's what this clover kind of does when I bring in that green flash. Anyways, I'm going to go along on each of these little clovers. I'll add in a little bit of my green flash detail. And then I needed to bring in my clear pointed backed rhinestones because some of these clovers, they have that little indent in the center. And I thought, oh, perfect. Put in a little tiny little rhinestone so it'll give that little look, boop. That little bit of pop that we all want, right? And so I did that with just a few of these. There was some in his hand as well. I thought that'll be a nice way. And then I placed a big one down on the front, right in front of his feet there. And it just made that extra little point that I needed. The last detail that I almost missed, and I should have done it sooner, but I brought in my white and put a couple of like life highlights in his eyes in the black, and that really made my little gnome come to life. So once more, I'm going to go ahead, I'm going to let you guys watch my hands talk as I complete up entirely my little gnome amongst the clover. All right, so this is the end result of creating my little gnome amongst the clover. Please use this for study and reference. And if you like this video, please like, subscribe, and leave me a comment. I'm always wondering what you're thinking. I'm also going to leave a couple of links here to a couple of my other videos that I have created, and hopefully you will enjoy them as well. Otherwise, I am sending you my biggest of big hugs, and I hope you have a fantastic day.